Girl's face was eaten by a raccoon. 13 years later, her dream is finally realized. Raccoons are undeniably adorable creatures. Many of us enjoy watching them on television where they appear harmless and endearing. However, the reality is quite different. Raccoons can be harmless as long as they're not provoked or treated as pets, especially when food is within reach. In today's story, I regret to inform you that things took a complicated turn, and the charming and innocent facade of raccoons faded, revealing an entirely unexpected dark side. Tara and Colin Ponce were not exactly a traditional couple. Tara was British, the daughter of a large aristocratic family full of rules and protocols, something she never felt comfortable with and decided to break with once and for all when she turned 20. She met her husband Colin at that convulsive moment in her life while she was doing a year of volunteering in Africa and trying to find herself against the wishes of her entire family. They fell in love almost instantly. It was love at first sight. Tara was just 24 years old, having just left her rich girl life behind, whilst Colin was 31 and had spent more than 10 years of his life trying to save the planet and care for those in need. When they fell in love, Colin was working as a Greenpeace expedition leader in the Gambia, and she was one of his assistants. By the end of the year, their love was more intense than ever, and it was clear to both of them what the next step would be. They'd get married and travel the world together. Of course, the married life they would lead was nothing like that of other couples their age. It would just be the opposite. Tara was seduced by Colin's liberal mentality and completely forgot about the comfortable life she'd led until the day she met him. They would have no fixed place of residence, no big house with a nice garden, none of that. Instead, they bought a big turquoise secondhand motorhome with which they planned to travel around the world on environmental and humanitarian aid missions. And so they did, despite not having the support of their family members. Tara's family did not agree at all. Not surprisingly, they believed that Colin had manipulated their daughter and taken her away from them. For their part, Colin's family, which consisted of an older brother named Tim and a mother too ill to have a say in anything, disapproved of the family life plan they both intended to pursue, although they never tried to convince him to do otherwise. Tim knew his brother and knew that no one would be able to get an idea out of his head, let alone if he was in love. While Tara and Colin had no desire to lead a traditional life, there was one thing they dreamed of since the day their relationship began. They wanted to be parents. A dream that they didn't have to wait too long to fulfill, since only 8 months after getting married and while they were doing humanitarian work in Vietnam, Tara became pregnant with that would-be couple's first child, Jonas. But the Ponce family still had to grow a little more, and just a year and a half after welcoming Jonas, the girl who a few months later would become the protagonist of this story was born, Charlotte, a little girl with green eyes and dark curly hair that would mark the destiny of her parents forever. The Ponce family's lifestyle had always been highly criticized by family and close friends, but nothing had ever happened to refute the arguments for which the couple stood in favor of a life plan away from traditional social standards. Until one night everything changed, and that which they loved most and to which they were giving their lives turned against them and left the youngest of the family seriously injured, little Charlotte. Charlotte Ponce was still a baby when she suffered a terrible accident. The girl was only 3 months old when she had to live through a terrible event that would leave her scarred for the rest of her life, and that she would have to face every day when she looked at herself in the mirror. The family had been traveling the Texas-Mexico border for months in their motorhome. Not the ideal place or time to raise 2 children, 3 months and a year and a half old, but they still did it. During their travels, the Ponces also expanded their family by adopting all kinds of animals they rescued from the streets and in need of care. Most of them returned months later to shelters and specialized centers to take care of them, but there was one occasion when they made an exception and kept a raccoon as a pet, a small wild raccoon they named Coco. At first, the animal gave no indication of being dangerous and was allowed to be around the kids. Raccoons have similar behavior to monkeys. They're really intelligent and easy to tame, although in the case of wild raccoons, it's not always safe to try to do so. What happened to Charlotte is clear proof of this. One summer night, when the parents left Charlotte in her bed along with a bottle full of milk, the raccoon got into the bed unseen and in a matter of seconds mutilated the little girl's face. The attack shattered her right ear, nose, and part of her lip and cheek. It was later concluded the raccoon acted on instinct, and what it really wanted was the milk in the girl's bottle. After all, it was a wild raccoon and its instinct did not disappear, no matter how much the Ponces had tried to tame it. It posed a danger to them and their family, but they realized that too late. After being urgently hospitalized and reporting to the relevant authorities, the Ponce family would end up breaking forever. Tara and Colin lost custody of their 2 children and were charged with child abuse and neglect. While this was happening, little Charlotte was taken into custody and child welfare would be in charge of finding her a new home. Luckily, after her father's family found out what happened, they agreed to take care of her. Her Aunt Sharon and Uncle Tim became her legal guardians. With them, she had a new beginning, and since she was a baby when the raccoon attack took place, she remembered nothing of her past life nor of her parents, something that helped her grow up with her new family without ever feeling like an outsider. However, there was something that Charlotte could never escape from that ended up conditioning her entire childhood and adolescence: the scars that the raccoon attack left on her face. Charlotte's injuries were too big and it was impossible for her to hide them, something that made it always difficult for her to socialize and ended up in a deep depression that she never stopped fighting against. She was totally traumatized and hated looking at herself in the mirror. With this face, I'll never get a boyfriend, and I don't blame him. Even I can't look at myself in the mirror without feeling a deep rejection. It's impossible for anyone to fall in love with me, let alone my face, Charlotte confessed one afternoon to one of her close friends from high school. The young girl felt really isolated from the rest of her peers, especially the boys. You have to have faith, Charlotte. Your problem won't be permanent. When you're older, you'll be able to have that operation you keep telling me so much about, and you'll get a normal face again. But still, you shouldn't talk about yourself like that. You're a wonderful person, and I'm sure there'll be someone who'll be able to see that no matter what you look like. Trust me, advised Marissa, a good friend with whom she had grown up with since the age of 3 and to whom she confided her deepest secrets. Charlotte suffered constant ups and downs in her moods and regularly went to a psychologist to help her cope with all her problems. Fortunately, apart from therapy, she'd also managed to make a small group of friends in high school. With them, she felt like just another young teenager and managed to forget about her physical appearance and her injuries. Throughout her short life, Charlotte had to undergo a myriad of cosmetic operations to reconstruct her face, many of them really painful and with a long and unpleasant recovery process. However, Charlotte has never complained or cried during these procedures. The courage and fortitude she showed during each procedure was admirable. Her doctors were very impressed. I've never seen someone so young withstand pain so well. Charlotte's fortitude during each treatment is incredible. I take my hat off to her, explained one of the doctors who treated her in an interview with the Daily Mail. Over the past 5 years, her pediatric plastic surgeon, Dr. Kungrid Chayaste of Beaumont Hospital in Royal Oak, Michigan, had successfully reconstructed much of Charlotte's face. However, there was still a long way to go before her recovery could be said to be complete. To that end, Charlotte agreed to undergo one last significant operation, in which doctors worked for hours to strengthen her ear using tissue from her own stomach. If the operation went well, the little girl would finally be able to do something she'd always wanted to do, pierce her ears. It may seem trivial, but something as simple and everyday as wearing earrings had proved impossible for Charlotte. At the time of this important intervention, Charlotte was already 14, and after more than an hour of hard work by the doctors, the brave little girl was finally able to wear the 50 pairs of earrings she'd collected over the years. During this complex operation, which lasted about 90 minutes, the doctors also used stomach tissue to add volume to her upper lip and right cheek. Charlotte had never looked so beautiful. As she looked in the mirror after removing the bandages, she couldn't help but burst into tears. Her face was complete and there was hardly a trace of her serious injuries. It was a very emotional moment for the whole family. As I looked in the mirror, I couldn't believe it. All my dreams had come true in an instant. My face was normal and I had all my earrings on. I never felt so happy, explained little Charlotte in a recent interview with a local Michigan newspaper. She's a fighter, Dr. Chayaste, who operated on her, told the Detroit Free Press. She never cried. With every operation, she never complained. But perhaps the most surprising result of all this is that brave Charlotte, just 15 years old, has decided that when she grows up, she'll be a biomedical engineer. In this way, she'll be able to make prosthetics for people who are also missing body parts and help other young people regain their lives and self-confidence. My dream is that other girls and boys can smile when they look in the mirror, just like I've been able to. I think there's nothing more beautiful than giving someone back their confidence. That's my dream now, Charlotte said excitedly in her interview. Charlotte is an extraordinary young woman with a difficult past that conditioned her all her life. However, instead of becoming someone spiteful and sad, she fought to the end to fulfill her dreams and found the happiness she had so longed for. Her story is a clear example that courage and generosity are not so different after all. Did you like this touching and surprising story? If so, we invite you to leave us a comment expressing your opinion. If you want to continue enjoying inspiring stories like this one, subscribe to our channel or check out the other videos shown at the bottom of the screen. Thank you for your cooperation.